Good morning, everybody, and welcome to probably the freshest of the business before hours for the year. I hope you're all managing the cold snap as well as can be. Before we kick off, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today, the Wiradjuri people, and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Special welcome to all of the team from Albury Business Connect. I'd like to introduce you to Rachel. Rachel organises all of your events, and she does a hell of a lot of admin work behind the scenes for us to make it look like a very well-run machine. So thank you, Rachel, for making us look like ducks, calm up above and frantic down below. Lisa, up the back there, Lisa in the business development role is all things membership, all things sponsorship and all things ideas. So if you guys have any ideas or want to throw money at us or want to engage with us more, please hit Lisa up. And Gabby, I'd like to congratulate you officially on stepping out from the communications role with Albury Business Connect and into the Albury CBD coordinator role. So congratulations to Gabby. Bit of round of applause. So Gabby is, by the title suggesting, she will be looking after all things Albury CBD. So you will no doubt hear from her in the interim while we're looking for a communications person. She's doing both roles though. So. And I decreased her pay, so I don't know how that worked. I'd like to welcome our board members. Board members, if you can put your hands up and introduce yourselves quickly.
Alex Berry from the Independent Wine Merchant. This is my second term. Love it. Great networking business.
Celeste Hughes with Business Accountants, board member.
Steve Owens, Eligibility Change Agency.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Our board members are voluntary. They are passionate about the business community. They put so many hours into helping this organisation run. So please, if you have any concerns, if you have any ideas, if you have anything at all that you want to approach them or talk to them about, please do so. They're there for you. No different to the team as well. Who else have we got? Councillor Alice Glacken has already done a quick intro. I'd like to welcome you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our sponsors. We cannot emphasise enough how important our sponsors are to the organisation. Without our sponsors, we are very much hamstrung. So the sponsorship program literally throws money into our wages so that we can be here for you and so that we can respond to what you guys tell us that you want to do in business. So thank you to all of our sponsors for the year. It is incredible to see the support that we've been able to garner, considering the different year that we had last year. It is very heartening and really, we're very, very grateful. So if you ever get a chance to tap these guys on the shoulder, which there are quite a few in the room this morning, please do so and just say thank you. I figured because we've got relatively low numbers, and I think it's because it's a little bit fresh this morning, I would love it if we could just all whip around the room, just introduce yourselves, just really quickly. No, don't worry, we're not asking for an elevator pitch, so just so that people can hear and see who you are. So starting at the back of the room, we've already heard from Alex. I've already introduced Gabby, and then we've got
Gavin. So, I'm from Lightning IP, just recently become a dad. I just made myself, did a feed at 4 a.m. this morning and I've stayed awake since then, so I'm halfway through my day. But we run an internet service provider with my business partner Dan here that services the local region. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's us.
who's next?
Is that me? Oh.
Go for it. You don't have to stand up.
Oh, good. I'm Brooke. I own Beeston Roteko in Wodonga. Yes, I'm the hairdresser. And I'm Deputy Chair of YBE.
Cool, thank you, Brooke.
Hi everybody, my name's Lachlan. I'm here from the office of Susan Lee. So if you have any questions about government services or issues, complaints, anything, praise, sometimes we get it. Please feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Mel, Starfish Marketing. me. I'm Zoe. I'm a HR business partner for Total HRM.
I'm Dan, as Gab said, internet stuff.
Fabulous internet stuff.
Yeah, Jonathan Davis, Head of Customer and Stakeholder Relations for TAFE New South Wales.
I'm Andrew, I'm one of the managers at RSM.
Rachel Neal, New South Wales Police. I'm the Crime Prevention Officer here at Albury and also the whole Murray River Police District all the way to Swan Hill pretty much. So if you've got anything relating to your businesses that has a criminal element, I'm the person to speak to. I'll happily come and help you out with anything. We don't want any of your businesses attacked by fraud or scam or anything, shoplifting, whatever it is. I'm here to help you.
Great, thank you.
I'm Shelby Sands and I'm from PRD. I'm Kelly Geddes from PRD. Samara McMahon from PRD.
Matt Sharp from PRD. We've already heard from Celeste.
Hi, I'm Simone from Home Instead. I'm a new girl in town, just moved in 3 months ago, so we're looking at local, more relationship-based care for older people in the community.
Welcome, Simone.
We've heard from Steve and we've jumped across to
Susan Brooks from Training Services New South Wales. So I'm based in Albury. Our regional office is in Wagga. And I'm employed as a skills broker and I'm giving a presentation soon, so I won't go on too much. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Susan.
Nicholas Little, I can't spell PRD. Co-owner of Little Lights of Albury with Alice here. We used to own Beacon Lighting in Albury, but we've kept the company so that we can do special projects, hostage rescue, all the things the police can't do.
Always good to have
And we've already done Alice, so thank you guys. The reason I do this is because I think it's a really important part of anything that we do in business is creating connections with people, and that's where we're really lucky, I think, being regional. We have that ability to really connect emotionally with people, and that's what business is. It's about earning trust, it's about building relationships, and it's about relying and respecting other people in the community. So that's just a little way that I like to think that we can make a little difference. So before we go on, we didn't hear from one person in the corner here because he strategically placed himself ready to go. But I'd love to introduce Nick Barr from HIB Insurance Brokers. Nick is another long-term chamber supporter of ours. HIB are also a sponsor of ours. And Nick's going to talk to us about something which is coincidentally very important and relevant to us at Chamber, because we have just been subject to, what would you call it?
Web hacking. Website hacking.
Yeah, so Nick is going to talk to us this morning about cyber insurance.
It's quite funny because I was just sent a presentation to Rachel and then Carrick sent me an email going, this has just happened. I'm like, oh, that's apt.
Who'd have thunk? So I'm going to be glued to this presentation. Nick, over to you.
Now, I'm told the clicker is unavailable. So as Carrick introduced, my name's Nick. I've been at HIB for just on 13 years. So my specialty is financial lines, so whether it be cyber, professional indemnity, public liability, that sort of thing. So, but given the issues we had last year with working from home, a lot of the companies racing to get people working from home, the increase in cyber attacks, I thought it might be an opportunity to present to especially SME businesses, which are now, after all the research I've done, representing about 40% of all cyber claims. So the claims costs are increasing and the cyber attackers are getting quite a bit smarter. However, it's just there. So the policy is structured with an overall limit, but there are extensions within that to cover you. The red is basically what I've put there is effectively what the policy covers you for. So first party costs are your costs in regards to meeting a cyber claim. So they could be IT and forensic costs, forensic credit monitoring, cyber extortion and ransom. We are seeing a big increase in insurers paying ransom costs, especially in Bitcoin, because they're not traceable. And also, the honour amongst thieves used to be that you get hit once and they wouldn't come back, but they are coming back. So, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to unlock computer systems and everything else. So some of the insurers are reluctantly having to pay some of the costs. There's legal notification costs if you're required to actually send a letter to your customer notifying them that their privacy or their records are being breached. public relations and defence expenses. Business interruption, if you're not able to trade or generate revenue because of the cyber loss, then the insurer will pay the loss of profits along with any additional expenses incurred to get the business up and running. There's third-party claims, so there could be liability claims from a third party because you failed to keep their data secure. So that could be, for example, I think medical, accounting, insurance, where the data is actually valuable. It's got a value on the dark web that they sell it for. Official investigations, that could be the Privacy Commission actually doing an investigation, which would require cover for defence costs. There could be a fine levied if the breach is severe enough, and obviously the defence costs. There's also, in some of the policies, the devil's always in the detail, but there is some cover for direct financial loss if you've suffered a cyber fraud incident, if the money gets intercepted and gets sent somewhere. We had a real estate client, follow all the procedures, pay the settlement on a property, and the money just vanished, $140,000. So we don't know the bank, no one knows where it went, it just vanished. So we think they've been monitoring their system for quite some time to get in behind the scenes to work out what the vulnerabilities of the security were. Social engineering. Phishing is when you get the nice looking email that says, can you please pay this bill, and you hover over the link and it's got a web link as long as you're on. That's what that's for. And freaking is actually the use of telephone bandwidth.
So freaking?
Yeah.
With P.
Yeah, it's actually the use of the telephone bandwidth to run up cost, and all of a sudden you get a bill from Telstra for 30 grand for the month. Yeah, so that's there's a claims example on the next slide, which is actually quite interesting. And media liability, so it's protection against libel, slander, defamation. That could be, we don't see a lot of claims in that area. It's mainly for areas that are running blogs and websites and Facebook pages where someone makes a comment and there's an argument and they think they've been defamed or slandered or that sort of thing. So that's effectively how the policy is structured. The financial loss element, as I said, is usually optional. It's not standard in many of the wordings. The insurers like to see a bit of risk management behind the scenes before they'll give the cover, because that is the one area where they're obviously seeing the big increase in the claims. So the other four generally will work together to make sure you're covered whilst your system gets that back up and running, or they have to rebuild your IT system, or you need to appoint external providers to bring in equipment. So is there any questions on that?
So I think just thinking that's actually really good for us to know, because often when we get that information, we don't know what we're looking at. So for you actually pointing out that the financial loss is optional, that's good for us. To be flagged for us.
Yeah, the devil's in the detail. Yeah. With business interruption, for example, some insurers will offer a 3-month indemnity period, so that's the maximum amount of time they'll pay whilst to pay the revenue and the costs and everything else while the business is down. Some are offering 6, some of them are offering 9, some of them are offering an 8-hour waiting period, some are 3 days. So it's dependent on who the insurer is, what occupation you're in. If it's a high hazard occupation like accounting, real estate, anywhere where there's a bit of money involved, they will push out the waiting period and shorten the indemnity period because they know it's probably the claim's going to be significant. In regards to the fines and penalties, legislation brought in February 2019 makes it compulsory for private companies turning over more than $3 million to report privacy breaches to the Commissioner. So if you are turning over more than $3 million, you have to report the breaches. If you don't, the fines are significant. And it's likely that if you have avoided informing them, then the insurer is not going to pay the fine because they don't cover that sort of behaviour. So as I said, the big claims at the moment, ransomware. We are seeing a big increase in claims with inadvertent transmission of ransomware. Someone gets an email that's dodgy and accidentally forwards it on to a third party or a vendor or a provider. Their system goes down as a result. That's a third party claim there. So some people, it's very easy. The emails these days look so good. They look so sophisticated. I got one the other day from ANZ. I haven't banked with ANZ for 12 years. It looked very, very good. So I rang them and they just said, send it through to fraud at ANZ and we'll look into it. So it's just a matter of being vigilant.
So is that what you should actually do? Because I usually just delete them if I think they're dodgy.
Well, this one was so good, I decided to bring it back.
Yeah. No, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah. So that was a 5-minute phone call, and the gentleman at the other end was very appreciative, as he said other people open them or they don't worry. And he said by sending it on, we can see how it's structured and everything else, do a bit of investigating.
Get the falcon out there.
Yeah, so any other questions? Yes, Mel?
Is there a higher risk at all if you operate in the cloud with, say, Dropbox, for example?
No, so the policies
through a server?
No, so the policies will extend, provide cover if your data in the cloud, because they obviously understand that most people these days are not storing data locally. It's mainly more risk management about what you have behind the scenes to protect you. From what I was reading was, if you're still storing data in the cloud through a third-party provider, you're still liable for that loss if that data gets stolen. So it's quite an interesting exercise. So they obviously thought, well, we can't just restrict the cover to people who store locally, because, well, I mean, everyone almost backs up the cloud now. So, and if the cloud provider goes down, I was reading quite a large claims example. It was $280,000 where the cloud provider itself got hacked, and the client was a radiation, a medical company, and all their records got lost, so they ended up getting fined. So it's quite interesting about what's happening.
Just around if you having this type of insurance and your own liability, and just what the insurance companies handle things like two-factor authentication and requirements for you to have that. If you can't have that, if you are able to have it and you don't decide to enable it, those types of things?
Generally, the insurers like to, the more risk management the better is what we're getting from the insurers, especially around the financial loss, where they're saying they prefer to see dual authorization. So there's two people witnessing or signing off on the transfer, the payment, whatever it is. If it's usually above $2,000. We are seeing a lot of insurers, especially on bigger accounts, we've got to insist on two-factor authentication for remote access, whereas before they weren't doing that. So I've got one client, the renewal came back and they asked the question about the two-factor authentication. The client said no, and they just rated it accordingly. The client may have paid a bit more for that because they weren't doing it, but we've now gone back to the insurer and said, well, if the client puts this in, what can you do for us? So it's really dependent on the insurer's own requirements, because there's 9 or 8 insurers I can think of that we deal with cyber, and they're all different. They all have different underwriting criteria. Some can do certain industries, some can't. It just depends on what the individual requirements are for their underwriting. So, anything else?
So Nick, when you're looking at premiums, are your premiums based on how much security you have on the front end? Like your homeowner, to the more window locks and alarm systems, that your premiums go down, so that we're the same way? And
so it's based on, first thing it's based on is occupation. So what your business is doing. Then they look at a revenue band, and then they look at the security behind the scenes. You're encrypting all the portable media. Is there, who's managing your IT externally? Are you already doing the dual sign-off for any transfers? That sort of thing will have a rating behind the scenes on the premium. And in some cases, if there's not much risk management at all, depending on the industry, the insurer will just turn around and say, oh no, we don't want to quote it. So cyber is an evolving thing. The claims now are pouring in at a rate of knots where, some insurers are now launching and they're dirt cheap and that sort of thing. When the insurers have been around for the last 12, 13 years, are pushing through rate increases because they are getting the $280,000 loss or $500,000, or the average claim cost is now about 30 grand, because once they appoint their panel, the lawyers and the panel vendors, the IT company, the costs just skyrocket. So I had a client have a small breach. Someone tricks their website and starts sending emails out to all their customers. It wasn't a big deal, but the claim cost was $45,000 because they had to get their IT people in, and then they had to notify this company turns over $9 million. They had to get the lawyers to send all their customers a letter saying that their website had been hacked, and it's quite a process. So, yeah. Any other questions? I know it's a bit wordy. I'm sorry. Next. I'll just run through quickly. Your question about this was an accounting firm. These are all SMEs, so they're all generally turning over less than $1 million. I did quite a bit of research. So the accountant had a third-party cloud-based, this goes back to your question, Mel. Yeah, so the cloud provider had advised them that their account had been accessed by an unauthorised entity who deleted the data. Basically, they weren't able to operate as usual. The insurer appointed for IT forensics, and they were able to claim for the business interruption legal costs. So that total claim is about 124,000. The medical services provider, they're subject to a ransomware attack. This one where they basically held the system up for ransom, and until the IT people got in to release it, the remediation costs were the bulk of the cost there. That was only 63,000. The online retailer, that was an interesting one where, obviously being online, completely dependent on the website up and running. The customers were directed to a suspicious website, and then when they tried to pay for the goods, they weren't able to restore the website. They had to completely rebuild it, and that ended up being about 50,000. The poor hairdresser who uses a VoIP telephone system, the hackers gained access behind the scenes to those calls you get over the weekend from Nigeria or Russia or somewhere. That's pretty much probably where they were. And she got a bill from Telstra for 30 grand. So, a bit of a shock. Yeah. And then there was a not-for-profit. I don't know why they didn't target not-for-profit, it's just appalling. But anyway, they'd engaged a third-party provider to do a marketing exercise. So there was no actual breach here, but the client did report it to the insurer, and the panel lawyers were able to just give them guidance in regards to what their legal obligations were, in regards to whether they had to notify all their customers and that sort of thing. As you can see, that was 10 grand run up pretty quickly, just in legal costs. So they're just, I could send you 45,000 claims examples, but they're sort of relevant for around here, I think, based on the sort of SME sort of industries we've got around here. So as you can see from the claims cost, 10, 30, they're probably averaging 40, 45,000 there pretty quickly. So, and as Carrick found out yesterday, it wasn't a big deal for me to ring the insurer's third-party claims provider. I was on the phone to them for probably 15 minutes, giving them basic details about what had happened, and I had an email 10 minutes after that. I think Carrick had a call 20 minutes after that. So it ran pretty well, actually. Yeah, so. Any other questions on that?
No, that's fascinating.
And I've just got I spoke to a couple of insurers and some IT companies and just some general risk management suggestions. I mean, I could go on, but these are probably just best practice, really, more than anything. When they say frequently back up to your cloud provider, some insurers say 7 days, and some say every day. So it's a bit of a mixed bag between the two. So and then the fifth one is probably more important. So we, as an insurance broker, get an email from a client saying, we've said, well, here's your return premium, going to bank account details. They send it in via email. We ring them with the number on the system, not on the email, and just verify that they've actually sent us the details and get them to verbally record or verbally read out the bank account details over the phone. Because we have seen that's been the big issue with a lot of real estate agents, where they've got money in for settlement, trust account sort of thing, and there hasn't been the correct protocol followed, and there's money all missing then.
Yeah, it must be more prevalent than just that one instance you mentioned. It must be happening
Yeah, we had one the other day for $500,000 for one of the new apartments in town that are going up. We know there's nice new ones, only 100 jacks. Yeah, $500,000. Oh gosh. Lovely elderly couple.
Yeah.
I'll work Claire around.
And the other option, number 6, if you do hold a cyber liability policy, even if you think it's not going to be a claim, it's important to let us know. I say that with any insurance policy, especially if it's liability or professional indemnity, because things can eventuate down the track. They're long tail claims, so we've seen when I was working in Melbourne, we'd have claims crop up 3-4 years down the track. So it's important to notify the insurer straight away. Even if it's a report only, it's on the file, and if anything eventuates, then they can deal with it then. So Gavin's probably got some wise ideas about how to Fort Knox your systems, but they're basically the 6 that I sort of came up with while I was doing all the research. So what we do have at HIB, which will be distributed, we've got a free guide to data breaches, assisting with data breaches, and also the requirements under the notifiable data breaches scheme. So we're going to email that out. Jill, one of the insurers we deal with, has gracefully provided me with a FAQ on social engineering and cyber fraud and phishing. That has got quite a good information about what they are, how to avoid them, and some general risk management. So we'll circulate those out loud, and if there's anyone's got any questions, give me a call. Yep. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Nick. So a couple of quick takeaways for me was a pretty staggering fact: 40% of cyber fraud or cyber claims being SMEs. That's massive. So I think that's probably good enough reason for everybody to be aware of this. Phreaking. Yep. Yeah. I now know what phreaking is. And I think that you touched on it a few times, but the dependence that we have on our online systems now, and how that can determine if or how much income we're actually generating. So I think it's a good time to be aware of what systems you've got in place and what insurance you've got in place to cover those systems. Thank you, Nick, very much. Next up, I'd love to welcome Susan up to the speaking zone, which apparently you're not allowed to move out of this little zone here. So over to you, Susan. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming out on this chilly morning, a bit different to a week ago. There's a couple of familiar faces that I can see, so a lot of you don't know me, some of you do. My name's Susan Bruce, and I work with Training Services New South Wales. So Training Services New South Wales is a division of the Department of Education, New South Wales Department of Education. I've previously worked with us in apprenticeship centres, it's sort of called Australian Network Providers. And in my last role, I account managed the Department of Defence, which was probably the largest employer of apprentices and trainees in Australia. So I've been working in the vocational education and training sector for about 15 or more years now. So Rich.
Yeah, if you just next, it should all be together.
Next. Yeah. So Training Services New South Wales, we operate right through New South Wales, and we have a regional office based in Wagga. I'm based here in Albury along with a training advisor by the name of Rob Dickens, so some of you may have heard of him. Today I'm just going to give you a quick run through New South Wales JobTrainer, which is a New South Wales funded program to deliver skilling in New South Wales. I know you're all rushing to get back to work, so I'll be as quick as I can. And that's my details there. So anybody who would like my details, I have cards up the back there, as well as a copy of the presentation, if you'd like to take it with my details on there. So have you all heard of Training Services New South Wales, and you're all familiar with what we do? So basically we fund vocational education and training in New South Wales. So we fund around 400 public and private registered training organisations to deliver vocational education training in New South Wales, and that includes TAFE New South Wales. So we contract TAFE New South Wales along with those private providers to deliver full and part qualifications throughout New South Wales. We're also the regulator for apprenticeships and traineeships, so all apprentices and trainees in New South Wales are registered with us. And we perform a range of functions in that space. So we do a lot of monitoring to ensure parties are meeting their obligations under the training contract, and we also undertake performance and quality assurance monitoring with the registered training organisations that we fund under Smart and Skilled. The JobTrainer program, in partnership with the federal government, under the JobTrainer program. So some of you may have heard of the term JobTrainer. In New South Wales, we fund, or New South Wales has contributed just over $159 million under the New South Wales JobTrainer. And the idea of this funding is to provide more than 100,000 training places over the next 2 years to upskill and reskill people in New South Wales who may have been affected by the short-term and long-term effects of COVID-19. So initially, there were a number of sectors that were adversely affected because of COVID, for instance, hospitality. So this funding was made available to help reskill people into jobs in demand, so into other sectors in demand. So the skilling for recovery, as you know, COVID had a severe effect on industries and individuals throughout Australia and in New South Wales. So again, providing under the New South Wales JobTrainer an opportunity for job seekers and school leavers to obtain the skills that they need to take up the jobs that are in demand at the moment. So under the New South Wales JobTrainer, there are about 90,000 part qualifications that we will fund under New South Wales JobTrainer, and I think it was about 15,000 full qualifications. So full and part qualifications are funded under New South Wales JobTrainer for eligible participants. We have a workforce development team led. His name escaped me all of a sudden, but a team of people that are actually working with national clients and international clients to attract business to New South Wales. So you might have read recently that the movie sector, so American companies are coming over to Australia and establishing themselves in the movie industry. So we're working with those types of industries to upskill local people to be able to perform jobs and attract those types of businesses to Australia and to New South Wales. We have under the New South Wales JobTrainer also a bucket of money for the construction industry. So that's not just builders. Obviously under construction there is civil construction as well as normal building construction. And all of the industries or the businesses that contribute to that. So it may not necessarily be a builder, but it may be someone who manufactures something to be used in that industry, or truck drivers that are used in that industry. So under the New South Wales JobTrainer, there is a bucket of money specifically for the construction industry to upskill people in that area. Summer skills. Some of you may have heard of summer skills. So the New South Wales government has funded places for 2020 Year 12 school leavers to upskill was sort of over the Christmas break. I believe there'll be something coming out shortly for winter skills. A lot of school students or ex-school students took up that opportunity to upskill after leaving school, so through full qualifications and part qualifications. Regional skills brokers, that's myself. So there are 16 regional skills brokers throughout New South Wales. There are 2 in the Riverina, so myself and Angela Ray, who's based in Wagga. And it's our job to work with industry and businesses to help them navigate vocational education and training and to make them aware of the funding that is available, to upskill people onboarding into their businesses and to help with upskilling and reskilling their existing staff. So if you're aware of any employers who may need some assistance to navigate that space, please feel free to take my details and pass that on to them. Okay, the New South Wales JobTrainer, the purpose of the Skills Broker program is to connect disengaged or displaced workers and young people into training opportunities. So we work closely with the job active providers and other sort of networks that have connection with young people to ensure that if they require training to go into jobs, that we can provide that for them. So if we have an employer that is looking for staff, we can broker connections with the job active providers and provide skilling of those participants so that when they're onboarded with the employer that they have some of the basic skills that they need. So we work a lot with employers who are have a labour shortage at the moment to ensure that people coming on board there have those basic skills that they need. We do this by identifying growth industries. So a lot what I do is going out and speaking to employers and getting an idea of the businesses that are growing within our region and those people that need staff. So I'm out all of the time talking to businesses. So if you know of a business that needs my help, please pass on my details. So as I said, we upskill or provide upskilling and reskilling opportunity for people to work in those industries. And we work with the smart and skilled providers to support the training. So we broker relationships between the registered training organisations and the employers and the individuals who are looking to upskill under the New South Wales JobTrainer. Doing this means that people have the skills for the in-demand jobs that I was talking about, helps them stay in work and find work to improve their career prospects. So we also can fund employers to upskill their existing staff, their existing workforce as well, if they require skills to be able to perform their jobs. So as I mentioned, we have 16 skills brokers and we're trained helping people to locate new staff who are trained and ready to fill the jobs in demand, find ways to upskill existing staff or newly employed staff who need training, and redeploy existing staff who've been stood down or at risk of being stood down. So that's our main eligibility criteria under JobTrainer for existing staff, is that they need to be at risk of unemployment to fit into that. So eligibility, I'll just run through quickly. Any participant would need to meet smart and skilled eligibility criteria, so they need to be 15 years or older, an Australian citizen or permanent resident, and they must live and work in New South Wales. And specifically for JobTrainer, a young person between 17 to 24 at the commencement of training, regardless of their job status. So if you're 17 to 24 years old and you need some training, so either in part qualification skill sets or full qualifications, you automatically fit in under this program. A person who is a recipient of a Commonwealth welfare benefit, so someone on unemployment benefits, for example, an unemployed person, so it can be someone who's unemployed but not registered with it, Centrelink or the Job Active Agency. For example, my son who completed Year 12 last year, who's just working a few casual jobs, he's not registered as unemployed anywhere, but essentially he is. An employed person who is expected to become unemployed as defined by the department. So this one we need to delve into a little bit further. So the definition of an employed person who is expected to become unemployed is somebody that is at threat of being stood down, who's been on JobKeeper, and they require upskilling to be either redeployed within that business or elsewhere. A person returning to work on the condition that they receive training to be able to do their job. So if you've onboarded somebody into your business on the condition that they undertake some training, we can fund that under New South Wales JobTrainer. Also for low unskilled people. So we're working with a lot of businesses at the moment, and who employ people without qualifications from Certificate 3 or higher. We can fund them under the New South Wales JobTrainer to be able to secure their ongoing employment with those businesses and to provide them with the skills they need to carry out their job. So in a lot of cases, people need reskilling to perform new roles within the organisation, or just to be able to do their job better to secure their future employment with that organisation. So we work very closely with businesses to make sure that anyone that doesn't fit within this definition of an existing worker under New South JobTrainer, we do have other buckets of money that we can possibly fit those people into if they don't meet this eligibility criteria. So workers in declining industries. So you would have heard over COVID, the airline industry was pretty much decimated. So in that example, we can reskill and upskill people that have been stood down to place them into other industries. So you might have heard quite a few of those people went into agriculture and, you know, doing that sort of thing. So we've been able to upskill them in that situation. So at the moment we're working on a number of projects in a range of industries, and we've listed some there. The big one down the bottom there, the security and protection services. So we're actually funding around 2,000 people in a certificate 2 in security. The New South Wales Police actually engaged us to find and upskill 2,000 people so that they can go into the new quarantine system rather than their existing police force. So that's something that we're currently working on. So just very quickly, some other programs and services from Training Services New South Wales. The Regional Industry Education Partnership, we employ 2 people, one currently, one coming on board next week, to engage with schools and industry, to help students to form better ideas about their career. So to open their eyes to what jobs are actually out there. As some of you are aware, a lot of school students are sort of directed straight through to tertiary education. What we're trying to do is engage with schools and provide experiences for school students to show them what pathways are available for their careers.
I think that education also needs to be directed to the parents as well.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Culturally, everything is
correct.
Tertiary.
Yeah.
It's not within.
Yep. So we are trying to change the discussion within the schools. So we're getting in much earlier now and having those discussions with the school community to make them aware of the opportunities that are available, you know, other than tertiary education. So we've been running some really successful programs. So we've run some nurse camps for a group of Indigenous students in Narrandera, and we do a lot of employment sort of engagement tours where we take students into different industries to make them aware of what's actually available and what they can actually do. If you have a business that would be interested in taking some students in on work experience or to come and have a tour around your business, please let us know, and I'll put you in touch with our rep officers. Yeah.
Great idea, love it. But you'll find a lot of these students don't go to school. They can be under 15. And I come across them a lot in this area.
Yep.
They don't go to school.
Yep.
So you need to tap in somewhere different.
Yep.
I can help you out with that, with some ideas.
Yep.
But they traditionally don't go to school. The kids that need to learn those skill sets because school's not for them.
Yep.
And I'm talking young kids, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yep. So we are trying to engage with schools much earlier than, you know, conversations have been had in the past, and trying to do a lot more with those disengaged students because, you know, from a vocational point of view, they could be, you know, very, very valuable. And so we're actually working with those disengaged students to give them opportunities for work experience, and with the view to hopefully popping them into school-based arrangements where they can stay at school and be undertaking a school-based apprenticeship or traineeship along the way.
Where's that happening locally?
Everywhere. So I don't know if you've heard of school-based apprenticeships and traineeships, but they're a really good opportunity for a student to remain at school, to complete their HSC, and also be in the workforce, learning how to work and undertaking a qualification at the same time. So down here locally, I admit that it's been a little bit light on, but we've just employed a second REAP officer who'll be starting next week. So hopefully there'll be more engagement with the schools here locally. There are some schools that are really engaged in the space. Murray High School at the moment has an apprenticeship incubator project, so we've funded someone within the school to run that program,
and there's about 8 kids who are undertaking a vocational education training course in construction, and we have engaged with industry to give them opportunities to undertake work experience as part of that. So they're actually doing that as part of their HSC, and so they'll be doing work experience in terms 2 and 3.
I would really recommend starting with like Indy, Candia, some of the not mainstream schools.
Yep, and we certainly will be doing that.
The ones where the kids don't want to be at school.
Yep. No, we'll be definitely doing that. Yeah.
Regarding the school-based apprenticeships, what's the support system in place for the student while they're at school? Like when I was an apprentice, I was a school-based apprentice. And I ended up leaving school because I didn't have the support from my school environment to finish year 12. And then I went on to going full time and then opening my own business at 18. But obviously I had my hands screwed on. A lot of these school-based apprenticeships are the people that don't want to go to school. But what about the people that actually want to still finish and do a trade at the same time? I just feel like there's not that support system there in place.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably
I think that's something definitely that needs to be tapped into, because as someone that went through it, I was 14, 15 during my apprenticeship and didn't have that support, that I felt like being part-time at school or part-time at work, I was still working full-time and having a part-time contract, but didn't have that support to say, hey, like, we can still finish year 12, we can still do this. So I think that's definitely something that needs to be addressed in that area.
Totally agree.
Oh, for sure. And I said that, like, I was year 10 finished, and I don't want to do this anymore because I couldn't do the stress.
And that's part of the conversations and the support that our REAP officers provide the school, and it's changing that conversation and showing the importance of a school-based arrangement. But as you know, you need a lot of support at work, at school, and when you're undertaking the qualification. So it's a whole community approach to making it a successful program for that student. So definitely part of the conversations that we're having. Also the Bert Supervisor Workshop. So we provide free supervisor workshops for employers of apprentices and trainees. They are really fantastic, and if you haven't been to one, I would recommend it if you have an apprentice or a trainee in your business. We provide details about training services, what we do. We touch on mentoring and coaching, what to do if there's problems, that sort of thing. So they're really fantastic. Bert Evans Scholarship, currently that's open. So the Bert Evans Apprenticeship Scholarship is available to first year apprentices who may be suffering hardship. So there is a scholarship worth $5,000 over the 3 years of an apprenticeship. The apprentice needs to be in the first year of their apprenticeship to apply for it. The apprentice or someone else can nominate that person for a Bert Evans Scholarship, and the details can be found on our website along with the online application process. So the applications are open until I think it's the 31st of May or the end of May. So if you are aware of an apprentice who may be doing it a little bit tough and could be helped by that scholarship, I'd encourage you to visit our website and get the details and get them to apply for that. So this is the contact details for our Wagga office, so you can contact us at any time. And I'm just happy to take any questions. As I mentioned to you, there are a number of funded programs that we implement in New South Wales. New South Wales JobTrainer is just one of those. We also have Ag Skills, Ag Skills 2.0, which funds vocational education and training inside farm gates in cotton, grains and a range of other farming operations. We have our targeted priorities part qualifications, so again, for existing workers that require upskilling that don't fit into the New South Wales JobTrainer, there is some money available there to fund RTOs to deliver that training to participants. So does anyone have any questions?
Susan, is it the business that's in New South Wales, or is it the person who's getting the funding for the training, or can the business be in New South Wales and the person lives in Wodonga?
Okay, So we fund the training provider to deliver the training. So the eligibility is that the participant, the person undertaking the training, lives or works in New South Wales. So they can live in Victoria and work in New South Wales, or live and work in New South Wales. Yeah. Any other questions?
Cool.
I think we asked them all.
Thank you so much, Susan. Some really great opportunities, I think, out there for the business community through all the work that that Susan and her office are doing, particularly, I guess, probably a little bit outside of our scope here in the business community, but to hear, you know, the 17 to 24s eligibility into to tapping into this training is just incredible. Really excited to connect with you a little bit more, Susan, on the regional industry partnership.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of really solid work that can be achieved through that, so keen to see what happens there. The pre-employment training, I think, is pretty significant. We're all facing some really big challenges in recruiting at the moment, so there's some really creative ways, I think, there to start building a workforce, and, you know, obviously the support that we can tap into for our existing employees. Yeah, very, very exciting. Thank you very much, Susan. We'll let you guys...
Sorry, I've just popped a little survey form here. If anyone's interested in taking one. I've just got some questions in there around if your businesses have any current vacancies, if you're having trouble recruiting, and a couple of other questions around skilling there. So we'd be really happy to work with your organisation if you're looking for staff and need some upskilling. So please feel free to take one of these. If you're working with other businesses and you think they might be keen to complete this, and send that in to me, please take one of those. And I've just got a range of other flyers and things here about those programs that I touched on quickly, so feel free to take one of those as well.
Well, thank you, Susan. Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to thank the guys from Lightning IP. Most of you probably would have seen that you had an offer for a free coffee from these guys. They wanted to shout you this morning. If you haven't gone into City Cafe to grab your coffee yet, you've got until 9 o'clock this morning. So please go and, you know, charge up a big account for the boys. All right, go. So just wrapping up, guys, thank you for coming this morning. We've got some exciting things happening at the moment, one being the Albury-Wodonga Business Awards. Entries are open until Friday. Now, the entry process isn't very arduous. You can do it, I think on average there might be about maybe 4 or 5 questions with about 150 word count for each question, so it's actually not that bad. We would encourage you, we know you've had a very different year. There is a lot of good success stories out there. There's a lot of stories of transformation and adaptation. I don't like the word pivot, so I'm not going to use the word pivot. Please consider entering. We know that some of you have been nominated by members of the public, which is great, but you can also enter yourselves as well. So please take the time to just think about it and do it. Young Business Edge. Brooke, did you just want to give a quick update of, I think you guys have got an event coming up?
Yeah. Okay. I'll just move next to this. So I introduced myself before, but I definitely, YB is just doing a meet and mingle next week. We're doing it in Burleigh. So business owners or young business professionals 18 to 40. So even if you've got staff that, you know, are wanting to move up into managerial positions, etc., that obviously want to do that more personal development side, it'll definitely be a good networking event. Especially being a business owner under 40, I found that really challenging, so it'll be good to have that network environment. So
cool.
Pretty cool.
Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, so Young Business Edge work really hard on engaging with the young professionals in the region to give them a bit more sense of purpose and put them among their own crowd, because sometimes us older crew can be a little bit, I don't know, stale maybe for them. We don't know. We don't, well, I've just shown my own age there by not knowing what freaking is, and I'm pretty sure that I will be at Young Business Edge's event then on when is that next? So on the 22nd of April. So that's 5:30 at the Burleigh, and we've also got Business After Hours coming up on the 28th and that is going to be hosted by Harv Waste and Veolia in Wodonga. Great opportunity to do more of this, connecting and networking and having some conversations. So that's what's coming up. If you've got any ideas or any challenges in business, we want to hear about them. We are only as good as what you guys give us. So yeah, if you've got issues, if you've got barriers to being able to do business better, please just talk to us. And thank you for coming.
Thank you.